Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Amaazen Outdoors. This podcast is being presented by Upland Outfitters, home of the Relentless Pants, man. Those things are awesome. I had them out this week, and I pretty much, since I started the partnership with Jason, have been wearing those pants out anytime over the summer here where I had to do any work at the farm or dog training. I've even had them on the boat a little bit. They are tough as nails. I have yet to see a pull 'em thread. I've been in some nasty briars. They really held up a lot better than I thought. I can't recommend them enough. Hunting season is around the corner. Make sure you use discount code Amaazen, and I believe Jason is still offering 20% off on the Relentless Pants. So pick up a pair before hunting season is upon us, and you're out in the woods with a ripped up pair of pants and sweating, unnecessarily, because Jason's pants and the Relentless Pants are top notch and breathable, light. So you're going to want them this early season. Make sure you get them now. I also have a quick announcement. We've got another kind of temporary partnership with Chippewa River Custom Rods. Tom is going to be offering 10% off with discount code Amaazen 10. Amaazen 10, and it's all caps. If you decide to call him for a custom rod, just make sure you tell him that you heard about custom rods on Amaazen Outdoors podcast, and he will make sure that you get hooked up with a discount. All that information for both sponsors and partners are going to be in the show notes, so please support the podcast and these great companies. They are really good partners for the podcast, and I would like to see our listeners support them as well. So look them up, Upland Outfitters and Chippewa River Custom Rods. Enjoy today's show. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of the Amaazen Outdoors podcast. I've got an interesting guest today. I met this man up at the Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society a couple months ago. He is into everything. I mean, everything. Trevor Hubbs, he's got a really interesting story. And he's got a couple tidbits of information, kind of some call to action here for some hunters in Wisconsin. So listen in. Welcome, everybody, to another episode. I've got Trevor Hubbs today. He's an interesting cat. I met him a couple months ago, I guess now, at a Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society meeting. And he's involved in a hell of a lot of organizations. So, Trevor, thanks for coming on the podcast. Can you give everybody an introduction?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here. Yeah, so I'm Trevor Hubbs. I sit on the board for the Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society. I'm also the Armed Forces Initiative Coordinator for BackCountry Hunters and Anglers in Wisconsin. And then I do a little bit of finance and membership management for the Wisconsin Bear Hunters Association. But I'm a member of Quail Forever, Pheasants Forever. Try to spread it around everywhere else. Just passionate about the outdoors, love hunting and fishing, and I'd feel guilty if I wasn't giving something back. So, yeah.
I hear you, man. Kind of the reason why I started some of the podcasts. So you missed one of the other organizations that you're involved with, and that's the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. And I think it's going to be one of the topics for today. But let's kick around a couple questions here. I'm not really, and I feel embarrassed a bit that I have a podcast, and I don't really know these folks that well. But who is BackCountry Hunters and Anglers? I mean, I've seen them around a little bit, but it's not an organization that I've actually dove too deep into. So can you explain to just the listeners that may not know, like me, on a broad level, what that organization is?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't fault you at all for not knowing. They're relatively new. We've been around for about 10 years now. And our primary focus is to ensure hunting and fishing access to public lands and waters. So, for example, like a big push we work with, like Trout Unlimited in Wisconsin. You'll see in the driftless area, as well as especially where I live in eastern Wisconsin, you'll have fences that go across the creek. So the creek is public, but the land on either side of the creek would be private for a dairy farmer or a cattle farmer. And they'll just run their fence across the creek, not really thinking that they're blocking access, but they are. So one of the big projects that BackCountry Hunters and Anglers would work with is just helping educate that farmer, that landowner a little bit, like, hey, could you raise the bottom 3 rungs on this barbed wire fence just so fly fishermen can get through? So they work with Trout Unlimited. They'll work with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Federation, Wild Turkey groups, basically anybody, but their primary focus is this land and water access initiatives that come up.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through their news on the website, and I mean, they're involved in adopt a marsh in a wildlife area, take action to support CWD disposal, student-led step up, help pass, Great Outdoors Act. There's a lot of different stuff it looks like you guys are involved in that group. And it's kind of interesting. I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah, we keep it really broad, so we can do a lot of different things, and it really varies a lot from state to state. So, like, there's state chapters in every state, and then we also, one of our new initiatives that I'm helping out with is the Armed Forces Initiative, which is, there's 3 parts of it. There's the legislative part, the active duty part, and then my part is the veteran part. So, active duty part is we've got basically BHA chapters on different military bases. So while you're in the military, you're in a new spot. You grew up in southern Arizona, but now you're stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You don't really know a lot about hunting and fishing, but you'd still like to get into that because that's what you did growing up. Well, now we have a club there full of like-minded individuals that can help you kind of retain your passions from before you're in the military while you're in the military. And then as a part of that active duty after you retire or move on from the military, you'll go back home. So now you're back in southern Arizona or Wisconsin, and you want to keep hunting and fishing. Well, now we have a veterans chapter up here in the state for you. All guys have a lot of similar experiences that you have. They're out there hunting and fishing that can help you find areas, help you access those areas. And again, it's just helped you by finding a sense of community with people that have similar life experiences. Then the third stage is that legislative stage where as a veteran, you have a voice that is pretty important to a lot of congressmen, state senators, national senators, all kinds of different political groups. They all want to please veterans, or at least appear to be pleasing veterans. So as that veteran voice, if we can help train some of these veterans who are passionate about hunting, passionate about fishing, passionate about their public lands and waters, to get involved more on just even in their local politics by writing letters, calling their congressmen, that's how we move them into that third tier, which is this legislative tier, where now you're not only participating on public lands and waters, you're actually helping to ensure their future existence by using your voice that you've earned as a veteran. So
That's pretty cool,
So
man. I
that's
think veterans need a lot of engagement and a lot of just attention from us after they get done with their military service. I extend a lot of gratitude towards those boys who and girls who go to serve the country. So anything you can do to kind of help them out post their service, it's great. And then tying that in with the outdoors and then the whole legislative process and kind of full circling it. I think it's a recipe for some success. So I'm interested to hear how that goes over the next few years.
Yeah, it's a relatively new program. So the Veterans Initiative has only been a thing for about a year and a half now, but it's going really well. We've got about 16 states covered and a few, I want to say 5 active duty bases. So we're always looking to expand. If any listeners are out there and you're in active duty and you're on a Navy base, Marine base, Army base, Air Force, doesn't matter, give us a shout. We've either got a chapter there or we'd love to start one. So we can help you out. We have all the documents. We have funding measures in place that can help you work through all the nonsense paperwork of being on a military base and trying to hunt. So, reach out to Brian, reach out to me, do whatever, go on the website. Love to help you out.
Part of you kind of amaze me a little bit with all that you do. I try to pack it in. I'm a 5 pound or 10 pounds of crap in a 5 pound sack kind of guy. But you're part of all these groups. You're active, and then on top of it, you have a full time job. You've got a wife, kids, a wife that's a kid coming up, and a baby due. How do you fit in your little side hustle that you also have, Red Dog Media?
So I guess I'm again probably part of my time in the military, but I am very comfortable being uncomfortable. Kind of maybe it's ADHD, whatever. I'm sure there's a doctor that can diagnose it, but I got to have multiple things spinning. I got to have things going on. So it's kind of like I was looking at my schedule yesterday, sitting down with my wife after we put the kids to bed, and it's like, wow, I actually have about an hour a day that is not that is like free time, that is not like working. And I was thinking to myself, like, should I change that? And I was like, no, I mean, I'm pretty happy. I guess I like it. So like Red Dog Outdoor Media, it's just I like taking pictures. I like writing articles. I do some freelance writing for a few magazines. Probably if you're in the outdoor space, you may have heard me on like Bent Podcast, which is a podcast as part of the Meat Eater Company. I've written for Hunting Dog Confidential, which is an upland focused magazine based out of Minnesota. And then I recently had a couple articles in Bugle, which is Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation magazine. But I write mostly for me because I keep a little journal every time I go hunting. You never know what you're going to find out. And it's a big part of that is I'm having such a good time in the outdoors. I feel like everybody needs to have that. Like I feel like I was hiding it or I was keeping it from other people. So the more people that I can reach, just like, hey, this is what kind of experiences I'm having outside on your public land that anyone can go do this. Like, I feel like I need to spread the word there. And I think you share that passion, Brian. Like, you're doing the same thing. Like, you feel almost selfish when you're not sharing these experiences with other people.
To a certain degree, yeah. And I came, maybe I don't necessarily look at it the same way, but I mean, I do in the perspective that you just put it. But when I like gear up and I want to go do something, it's not that I want to share the experience. And that's the wholeheartedness. I mean, I love to be outdoors, but I want somebody to come with to share that experience that I'm going to have in getting them outdoors or doing whatever. So I guess, to your degree, I don't take as many pictures and I don't write stuff. Sharing my experiences with the podcast, it's just a little slightly different dynamic, but I guess, it kind of hit the nail on the head. I tried to make a different spin out of it, but it didn't work.
I like the spin you put on it. I mean, but even with your guide, like I've only been out with you a couple times, as part of your guiding kind of, I don't know if I should call that like a side venture or whatever part of the podcast, but like a big part of what I've seen you do guiding, teaching, and just like in 3 hours with you, I've become a 10 times better fly fisherman. And it's just like, I wouldn't have been able to do that without you. Like I would say you're a great guide. I'm not taking anything away from you, but you're a hell of a mentor. Well, I'd say hell. podcast. Sorry, bleep that out if you want.
Well, no, I appreciate that, man. No, it kind of, it's the gratification one seeks once in a while when you kind of take that selfless approach.
Mm-hmm.
I find that it's, I don't know, I've been given so much and by the community, by the opportunities, and, some of that's created through, hard work and success that I had in other areas. But at the end of the day, when I go to bed, it's not as gratifying for me unless I get to think about, hey, man, I shared a great experience with somebody and they learned something. And you know what? They don't need me to go back to go do what we did. Because, it's kind of like the old Bible says, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And I find that so true with the fulfillment you give people, I think, long term. Because they're able to take their skill set or whatever it is and then go apply it again somewhere. And they've taken something from your experience to create their own experiences. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing we get to really take with us. All the rest of the stuff is really kind of vanity and it's just stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And you look at it from a legacy perspective, and that's kind of, I kind of hit that turning point in my life where, all of a sudden, a lot of people around me, older generation that I know, they're getting sick or not being able to do the things they used to be able to do. And, I don't know. I I want to be able to give back before I get to that point in life.
Oh, absolutely. That's, I'm 31 years old now, and I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm old or maybe even middle aged, but it definitely is. I'm very aware of it. Like if I wake up and it's raining and I really don't want to go turkey hunting, I'm probably going to go anyway, even if it's unproductive, because what are 30 turkey seasons left? Like we gotta make the most out of what we got.
I just saw it. I don't know if it was on LinkedIn this morning, but it was this post of this 86-year-old guy who had just shot in his just taken his 401st turkey. And I'm going, holy cow, man, oh man. Like, think about the stories that he has. Yeah, real quickly, I got to give a shout out to this. Speaking of that, I just found out this morning, a dear friend of mine that we hunt with in Kansas. He's an older gentleman and probably the most revered bird hunter that if I had to pick somebody in their 80s to still go out and trounce around with some young bucks, I definitely picked on. And he had a diagnosis today that wasn't so great. So I hope we can hunt with him this fall. And just, shit happens, man. And life goes on like that. So I don't know. That's why I was kind of compelled. And I'm glad that I'm really glad to hear, somebody at your age too. And I'm starting to see a lot of this from our generations start to get involved. And because I think that, I met you at the Wisconsin Sharp-tailed Grouse Society, and you and I were the youngest guys there.
Yeah, it's concerning for sure.
Yeah, long term, it's just not sustainable, and nothing against those old guys. I mean, those old guys are the reason we still have birds here, and they've laid the foundation for us. But they're not going to be able to stay as in tune as you and I could with, say, just the younger generation. It's one of those things that eventually they become too far apart, and the interests are different. And when you can't find common ground, you get impotent in the process of moving legislation and things concerning access and opportunity for people. It just becomes a big issue.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's definitely a challenge when you have that big of a divide. You got 25-year-old kids trying to be involved, and 86-year-old guys are all sitting on the board. It's real tough to get things done sometimes.
It is. And I think it's a good segue into kind of why we decided to jump on the podcast today. There's some issues going on in Wisconsin when it comes down to running dogs. And you've kind of shed some light on it for me. And I haven't been necessarily involved in some of this stuff because I just didn't know what was going on. And again, part of the reason why I've made an about shift in the way I hunt and get involved in the outdoors. But can you talk about some of the things that are going to be happening here in Wisconsin over that have unveiled and what you're willing to share? There's some issues about running dogs all season long, and some kind of impotence that's come into the process, and bringing all the parties together to push forward some sensible legislation around this issue.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give you the microphone and you talk away, man. I've got a couple dogs that are banging away upstairs, so I got to yell upstairs real quick while I go on mute. But why don't you highlight the issue, please? Because I think it's not something that a lot of people know about right now.
Sure, and it's I don't think it's necessarily like something that was even avoidable. I mean, you have all kinds of different hunting groups in Wisconsin. You've got coon hunters, you've got bear hunters, you've got coyote hunters, you've got bird hunters, you've got duck hunters, and there's all these groups that use what we consider a hunting dog or a gun dog, like whether it's a hound or it's a retriever or it's a bird dog. And we kind of all get lumped together as these guys that use hunting dogs. But so if you're a hound hunter, a hunting dog to you is a hound. Like that's something that is going to pursue and track and eventually tree game to the point where it can be reduced to the hunter's possession. So as opposed to a bird dog who you're going to point that bird, hunters are going to shoot it. So we all kind of think of bird dogs or hunting dogs differently, but we're all in the same boat. We are all that hunting.
We should have mentioned too earlier in the podcast, but I mean, you grew up you're not originally from Wisconsin. You came up here and you grew up down in quail country, and you also grew up running coon hounds, right?
Yeah. So that's
so I wanted to make sure that people understood that you kind of have what I consider a all around you're not so put into that category of, hey, my dog's a hunting dog and, it's a coon dog. I mean, that's what it is, and your hunting dog, it doesn't matter. It's not a hunting dog to me, You've been around the block and had bird dogs, had retrieving dogs, and had hound dogs. So, I mean, you've been exposed to a lot of these different groups more over than I have.
Yeah, it's, I guess I would say jack of all trades, but a master of none. I'm kind of average at a lot of things, not great at anything, but, so I grew up down in southern Illinois where the Mississippi and Ohio River come together, about 7 hours straight south of Chicago. It was a great time. I grew up, everybody had a farm back then. I saw the tail end of quail hunting. So I had one uncle who had an Irish setter, and that's what we hunted our birds behind. And then I had my dad's other brother, my other uncle, had 4 coon hounds, and then we had 2 coon hounds growing up. And then Grandpa had a couple, so we'd go out on the weekends and we'd run coon hounds. And when that kind of petered out with the fur prices, because we'd also run into coyotes, and every now and then we get a bear or a mountain lion. People never believe me when I say that in Southern Illinois. I could show you some pictures. Like they're there. You've got the Shawnee National Forest right there, and it borders right into Mark Twain National Forest, and right into the area. You've got a ton of undisturbed habitat. If a critter's not opposed to swim in the Mississippi River, which they're not, they can go a long way and not run into a person.
I believe that, man. I've been through the southern Illinois and that national forest down there, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful, and I've yet to make the, Mark Twain, but I definitely got to get down that way. It's on my list of haunts to go hide out in the wintertime. It's warmer.
Yeah, that's the only difference though. Like, so it's very similar. Terrain-wise to the driftless area of Wisconsin. And I know you've talked about the driftless area before on the podcast, but it's essentially a part of Wisconsin that wasn't touched by the glacier. So you still have that topography. It's kind of rolling hills. You've got some rocky parts. You've got some meandering trout streams. Same way down there. So the glacier stopped right around Highway 70 in Illinois. So you get south of there and you've got rolling hills. You've got realistically, 3,000 feet of elevation changes. You're not the Appalachians, you're not the Rocky Mountains for sure, but you're definitely not up in the flatlands where you can watch your dog run away for 4 days. So
it's funny you said that. I was up in Canada one time in Manitoba, and the lady goes, "Yeah, we're pretty flat up here, but you get up to Saskatchewan," and she goes, "You can watch your dog run away for days."
I love that saying. That's a good one.
I used to use it all the time, man. It's too funny you said that.
I coon hunted coyote. Anything you could run with a 4-pack of hounds. I spent my younger years doing that, just thrilled between that and running a trap line. We're just taking out predators one at a time every weekend until I was about 13 years old. And then that's when our last kind of coon hunt passed, and my dad made the switch over, moved to the suburbs, and we switched to a black lab and started doing more duck hunting, more bird hunting, a little bit of pheasant, but quail was about petered out by then. So, yeah, then in high school, I ended up working at the duck club that my dad was a member of, which is down Route 3, Southern Illinois, right along the Mississippi River, where every farmer below who had any risk of flooding decided to just purposely flood his fields and make a duck or a goose club, and they're making way more money than they ever did growing cotton or soybeans. So,
Them city boys got to have a place to hunt, man. And you know, anybody who makes a decent chunk of living and is willing to pay for it, they will pay for it.
Absolutely. That was my job. I like to call myself a guide, but in reality, I was just the guy managing the dogs. So did a lot of retriever training, a little bit of guiding, but in reality, I was just there to manage that dog. So these wealthy hunters who didn't have a dog always had one ready at the club because we had a pack good to go. And then later in high school, I got more into upland game and started taking our black lab on more like planted pheasant hunts, and ended up getting a job at a planted pheasant field where they did chucker, pheasants, quail, and that's where I got my kind of adult introduction to setters and pointers, and really thought this was kind of the combination of the past two dogs that I'd worked with. Like, not only will a bird dog go find the game for you, but once you shoot it, it will also go retrieve that game. So in my mind, it was the perfect combination of a hound dog and a Labrador. Like, that's exactly what I was looking for. So after I got out of the Army, that was my first stop, as I was picking up an Irish setter, and I've had up to 3 at a time. Right now, I'm down to just the one. But yeah, I'd say probably a B-, C+ bird dog. Good enough for me. Good enough that when I miss, he doesn't feel too bad, and when he misses a bird, I don't feel too bad.
Yep. Hey, man, whatever floats your boat, I look at that, and I've said this on the podcast before. As long as that dog's getting you outside and you guys are having fun, dog's doing its mission.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's a pretty good dog. But yeah, so that's kind of my background. So I guess I also big game hunt, love deer hunting. I love shooting my recurve bow. I've been out west for elk and black bear a couple times, but yeah. So what I end up doing as a member of these different groups and kind of taking an active role is I really end up just like mitigating arguments between different groups, because I kind of see both sides. Not that somebody else couldn't see both sides, but through my just life experiences, like, it's easier for me to look at a bear hunter with a pack of 4 plot hounds and be like, yeah, that's my guy. I know exactly where he's coming from. We're real cool. Or to walk up to a duck hunter with a couple of retrievers that's trying to pass that AKC retriever test. I mean, like, yeah, I know all about that. Like, just make friends really easily, I guess, because I've been there and I've done that. Whereas, so for example, like the recent issue we have in northern Wisconsin is essentially in the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, which is a conglomerate of a lot of different outdoor focused groups. You have different, I wouldn't really call them like a caucus because that makes it sound political, but different clubs, different groups within the outdoor space. Like, for example, they have a hound hunters or I think they just call it a hunting dog group, right? So like you said before, the hunting dog group really, in an ideal world, should have a couple bird dog guys on it, a couple duck hunting guys on it, and a couple hound hunting guys on it. So you're really getting the opinions of all the different types of gun dogs or hunting dogs out there. Well, just through a little bit of lack of paying attention on my part, as well as a couple other people, we ended up with a hunting dog group that had all hound hunters. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Like, hound hunters are great dudes. The issue is when you only hunt hounds, you kind of don't think about the upland birds or the waterfowl. You think about everything hound related, which is fair. That's when I'm out with my bird dog, I'm not thinking about chasing raccoons or bears. Like, I'm thinking about bird hunting. So it makes sense. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. It was just a lack of oversight. So what these hunting dog groups, they kind of put forward 3 different rules for the spring hearing in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is one of those odd kind of legislative states when it comes to outdoor laws and wildlife focused laws. We have like Wisconsin Conservation Congress, which is an elected representative of the hunting and angling community that vote on whether laws should be changed or not. Then they propose those change laws to the Department of Natural Resources in Wisconsin, who can approve or deny them. So it's a really neat system where everybody gets a voice, and that voice is absolutely heard. Unfortunately, in this case, what happened was the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, they put forward 3 rules based on hunting dogs that allow hunting dogs to run open for training in the spring months. So traditionally, the spring has been closed to hunting dogs running freely, whether it's a bird dog, whether it's a Labrador, whether it's a hound, bear hunting dog, coon hunting dog. So the reason it's been originally closed is because we wanted to maintain our bear hunting culture in Wisconsin. So we got going back to the 60s and early 70s when they closed this April 15th to July 31st period, because you have bears that are just coming out of hibernation. They're low on fat, especially if they've just had 2 or 3 cubs over the winter, that you don't want to be hassling these bears while they're in that kind of state. One, because they're pretty desperate for food in some cases, and that can be really dangerous for a dog. But 2, we want to maintain a robust population for hunting purposes, and you can't do that if you're always stressing them out. So you need a resting period. So since then, we've gotten a lot of other conservation laws on the books. There's like very specific bear laws that, and our bear population is booming. We are, give or take, a destination state for a bear hunter in the lower 48. If you want to hunt black bears, you start buying points in Wisconsin, you'll get a good one. We routinely have 600 to 700 pound bears taken. But
yeah, in a couple of years, you'll be able to come, look at me, and I'll be able to help you complete that goal. But I need a couple of years yet. But you get his own D tag, or you get his own D tag. I'll help you out. I'll be showing you all what kind of bears we shoot around our neck of the woods this fall when I punch my tag.
I would love to. I've got 3 points right now, so I'm still a few years shy of enough. But
well, you put in next year, man. I'm dead serious with that, and I'll do it together with you, and we'll just do the experience. You won't even have to pay me, because I owe you a debt of gratitude with all you're doing here. But regardless, and you got a bear hunt coming up here. We're going to kind of wrap up the podcast with some of that stuff. So, anyways. Back into the kind of the history. So they put this resting period in, and obviously we know that through a lot of research over the last couple of decades as well, birds really need a nesting period. And, after being up with the sharp-tailed grouse and being on a lek this spring myself and witnessing that, it's a delicate issue when it comes to that resting period, because I think all wildlife need it. But at the same time, all of us dog owners, we want a place to go train, and we want a place to go run our dogs. I mean, my dogs are absolutely being nuts right now upstairs, and I can't, I sure hope some of that background noise doesn't come through the podcast too bad. I swear they knocked down a plant while you were talking just before. But, and a lot of that has to do with, just access in space to be able to let these dogs run off leash. I can go walk my dog 10 miles down the road on a leash, and they'll come back and do the same damn thing, because their mental aspect of being able to run off leash and to fulfill their what they were bred for, to hunt, that can't just be duplicated in the backyard or on a lead. So there's a challenge we all face as dog owners, especially multiple dog owners, to be able to give the dog what they need so that they can be good citizens to us and our neighbors, and not be harebrains because they've got a bunch of cooped up, energy that's not being fulfilled this time of year, especially coming off a hunting season. So, there's a huge, it's a big balance act that you guys are doing right now. And I guess the reason, with this underrepresentation, it's kind of backed us into an interesting corner. So can you kind of bring us up to kind of what happened now recently and kind of where you guys are at today with some of what's going on with this issue?
Yeah. Sorry, I ended up.
No, I like the history, man. I don't want to cut you off there. I mean, I think the history is important, and if there's anything left with the history, please, by all means, take a little bit of time and fill us in on maybe even from, that reason just in being the bears. And I kind of cut you off, and I think you were going down the bird path, but yeah, kind of jump back in there and then bring us up to today.
Yeah, no, you're good. I was about wrapped up. So essentially these laws that have been in place since the 1960s and early 70s against running your dog from April 15th through July 31st have kind of, even though they were focused on bears, they've really assisted in the recovering rough grouse, sharp-tailed grouse, woodcock, even pheasant, and to an extent, I would even argue the Wisconsin prairie chicken numbers. So, like, even though the laws weren't designed to help these animals out, these animals also experienced a decline, a lot of due to habitat and logging practices.
Well,
But
you've got turkeys, and you've got, that are
absolutely.
nesting. I know already this spring on my little 32 acres, I let the dogs out a couple weeks ago. It was just after April 15th, maybe the 20th or 21st. And, they busted two roosters hanging in the thickets, kind of on the edge of the property, and it's just, they didn't bust a nest or anything. They could have easily done that. But you got whitetails dropping. You got bear cubs. Just think about the dynamic of a small bear and a small cub and a dog introduced to a very, very large bear.
Oh, absolutely.
The dynamics of it all are pretty bad too. You just let a hunting dog out. It's not a bear dog. Let's say I let my bird dog out, on April 20th, and they run into a sow with very little cubs, and she's 500 pounds, and
Oh, yeah.
She's going to tear that dog up.
You are highly likely to dog in that scenario, which is, it's one of the things that hound hunters we kind of just accept, like, it's a dangerous game, it's a dangerous sport, but yeah, there's no reason to make it more dangerous than it needs to be. So, and the real issue is when we did this in the 60s and early 70s, we did a blanket rule over northern Wisconsin, like no running hounds in the north or any kind of hunting dog from April 15th to July 31st. Now, if you go to the southern half of Wisconsin,
I was going to say, but not in the south?
Yeah. Yeah, so the south, you're allowed to run your hunting dog off a leash from April 15th through July 31st, but not on state land. You can go to federal land, you can go to county land, but not on state land. So it's interesting where inadvertently, like, I don't think we did this on purpose. Maybe they did. I don't want to discredit anybody from the DNR in the 1970s, but so that we've inadvertently created these like rest areas. So, like, that's where we're going to find more of our rough grouse on state land versus county land down south. There's few rough grouse anyway, but that's where we'll find them because of that. We've pushed them to there. They know, like, all right, well, this area with dogs all over it is not safe. But this area over here where there's no dogs is safe. And I think, obviously, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources puts it in their hunting regulations. I think most states do, where a trained hunting dog is essential and in the appropriate and responsible recovery of downed game, whether that's a Labrador, a coonhound, or a bird dog. So it makes sense for people to, like, we're not against hunting dogs. And I want to be really clear about that. Like, they're an essential part of the hunting culture and the hunting process. What we do need is we need to kind of use a scalpel and cut this northern part of the state up into what's allowed, where it's allowed, and where it's not. Because I agree, we need an area to run our dogs. It makes the most sense to have a trained dog when duck season comes up or when pheasant season comes up or grouse season. Like, I don't want to lose a grouse in the bushes because my dog didn't have enough bird contact when I was training him. I don't want to have a bear hound accidentally get clawed up because he didn't have enough training to know to run with the pack instead of run by himself. I don't want a coon dog running into a mountain lion or a bear, like, inadvertently. And the way to do that is to get them enough training. So I really think that, and this is just me, I'd like to, we're proposing things with the Sharp-tailed Grouse Society. We're working with the coon hunters. We're working with the bear hunters. We're working with Rough Grouse Society and the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. So this is by no means like a doom and gloom, like this is the end of days kind of message. This is just, hey, here's what's happening. The hound hunters want to run forever, and they introduced a rule that kind of blanketed the North, like we can run wherever we want. That rule passed, now up for a vote in the Conservation Congress, which means it'll go to the DNR for review. What we'd like to do is kind of take a step back and cut it up, the northern part of the state, where maybe they can run on state land but not on federal, or they can run on federal but not on state, or they can run on private but not on this. And obviously we'd cut up like certain sections like the Clam Lake wilderness area or a wildlife area where we have our elk population. We don't want bear hounds running through when you have doe or cow elk giving birth. We don't want.
You got the Flambeau State Forest there too, which has elk herd, part of that Clam Lake herd. I mean, there's some delicate
absolutely.
stuff there that there's a lot of effort being put forth by other organizations to reintroduce those elk, and they already have enough struggles up there. It's just you can go on and on and on about individual animals in the springtime that this is a detriment to potentially. And again, I'm not against hound hunters. I have a fond respect for being able to take care of that pack of hounds for all year long, and then being able to only turn them loose for so long.
Absolutely.
So
the train. Oh, it's rough.
So again, so the process is that the unique Wisconsin legislative opportunity, I think, for the people who are involved recreating in Wisconsin versus some of these other states that may have legislators that represent them at the state level but don't necessarily have the same views. This is an opportunity for more people to get involved, and I think that's always better.
And that's going to happen. Like we had a 2-hour-long Zoom meeting where we just hashed out everything. We met with the Coon Hunter Association, bear hunters, a lot of different groups were represented. And I mean, ideal scenario, that meeting would have happened 6 months before we proposed a rule change, but because I wasn't paying close enough attention to who was on that hunting dog council on the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation, bird dogs and retrievers were not represented well enough, and they should have been. So, I mean, we are as much to blame as the coon hunters and the bear hunters. But, I mean, the point is, I guess the end message is we're going to get it taken care of. Everybody's willing to compromise. Like, coon hunters don't want to be killing young turkeys on accident or running over fawns and stuff like that, just as much as, I mean, us bird dog guys don't want to run over a lack of sharp-tailed grouse and ruin some eggs or something. Like, nobody wants that to happen. It's just a matter of, instead of using a blanket approach and the simplest approach, we need to really get a little more complex and start looking at all these different species that need protection and find a way to compromise. And we'll get there. It's going to take a lot longer, which I'm not necessarily. I mean, we've talked a little bit about this, but I'm a small government guy. I'm not. If we can restrict the government's power, I'm normally all for it. But in this case, with wildlife, like we just need a little bit more complex rule changes. We need a little bit more detail involved, and we'll get there. But yeah, that's what we're working on right now. So if you're not a member of the grass group, go join. It's $35 and get a sweet sticker and my phone number. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I kind of cut you off on that one. Was that the Wisconsin Sharp-Tailed Grouse Society plug?
Yeah, that was just a plug. Shameless plug.
Plug away, man.
No, but I mean, and really, besides Wisconsin Sharp-Tailed Grouse, I mean, you have listeners all over. So, I mean, Pheasants Forever is great. Quail Forever is great. Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. These are all great national groups. I wouldn't, don't overlook your local groups. Your Arizona Bear Hunters Association, your Colorado Bob White Quail group. Like, they're out there, and just normally cost of entry to these groups is lower, and they're doing a lot of local stuff with your money where you can really follow it on Facebook and you can see like, oh, that's where my $35 went to this 1 acre of land that is now appropriately managed or something like that. So wherever you're at, just look into your state groups too. Keep giving to your national groups, but pay attention to that. There's a lot of good being done at the state level.
Well, and small government is at the core of kind of, I believe, what really is the unique opportunity for people in Wisconsin that are sportsmen and being able to be involved at this kind of level to shape legislation that fits what they see on the landscape currently going on. So, you guys are doing the right thing, and it's really, it's assuring to me as a sportsman that's spending my money in Wisconsin that there are all these groups that are actually coming together to try to better the landscape, from an opportunity for me and my dogs to the habitat for those animals to exist. And
absolutely. Honestly, like when you think about it, it is a great problem to have. Like, I would much rather be in a room with 17 passionate people that are all arguing for their individual causes Like, rather than be in a room with 5 guys that don't really want to be there and we're all just trying to make the right decisions, like, this is a great, like, I would much rather be in a room where everybody's arguing about what the best thing for the landscape is than be in a room where no one's arguing. Because when no one's arguing, no one cares, so the conflict is part of growth. It's part of making the right decision. So I don't want to come off like I think it's a bad thing. I just think it's interesting, and part of it's really good. So.
Well, and I think too, shedding a little light on this, because of that opportunity in Wisconsin, there are additional people that might not have known about this that could get involved at this point yet. Oh,
sure. Absolutely. Like, if you want to reach out to your conservation congress member for your county, I think there's 5 conservation congress members per county. You can look them up on the DNR website, their cell phone. These are guys or girls in your community. Just give them a call. My guy's name is Brett. He lives about 4 blocks away from me. I talk to him all the time. We deer hunt the same spots. We pheasant hunt the same spots. I went duck hunting with him last year. Like, these are not like this high and mighty politician. This is your neighbor that's just volunteering some extra time. Yeah, give him a call. Let him know how you feel. You want dogs to be able to get out and get after it with no rules? Have at it. Let them know. Like, that's your vote matters. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, it's more than just your vote, because this is your voice. I mean, you can make your voice heard, and it's not this big, gigantic, scary entity that is the state legislature or your congressperson or your senator. This is your neighbor that, again, has volunteered his time to go voice your concerns about your local area to the DNR to shape legislation. I mean, this is small government at its best. So utilize it. Otherwise, I hate to say it, but, some of these things get crushed in other states.
Oh, absolutely. And it's great that we're having the discussion. So, yeah, reach out, get involved. It's a good thing. Only good things come from it.
So I hear your work phone buzzing in the background. Before we kind of segue to the next segment, do you need to take a small little break here?
No, sorry about that. That was
hey, no worries, man. I want to be able to, we can pause this thing. So
no, you're good. So my full-time job is I'm a small business consultant. I'm primarily focused on the construction industry. So I've got
you're going nuts
out working in this good weather, and everybody's got questions, but there's no construction ambulances because there's no construction emergencies. It's people will be fine. I'll figure it out.
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys are super busy to begin with the industry the way it is. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm sure there's lots of phone calls that are being returned right away right now. Oh, I know my builder doesn't call me back right away. Although he's been really good, so I shouldn't. I should give those guys a plug. FB Contractors, if you're looking for pole barn up in Polk County, Wisconsin, they do a great job, and Brian's a really good guy. So he does get back to me right away. But no, I've got a couple contractor buddies, and try to get a hold of them personally. Yeah, no.
It's a tough time of year, but yeah, no. So we're good. If you want to talk about the bear hunting part of.
Yeah, I'm really excited because, we talked, we've shared a stream together and we kind of talked about a few different things. And you kind of mentioned this a couple of times, and I don't know, we've been just chatting away about other stuff. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear what you got going on. Because, again, I'm bear hunting this fall. So, it's not a huge corner of my life that, I bear hunt every year. No, it's something that I do every couple of years, and I enjoy it. And it's a nice pivot for me. But I've only done it in Wisconsin and Minnesota. So you're doing a Western hunt, and I'm really, really interested because I've never even considered doing a spring hunt. And I probably should because it's kind of my downtime with the dogs.
Right. It's a great experience. But I gave you a little background around me, but that's Southern Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee kind of area of the country. So, like, when that was first getting populated, because we've been here since forever, the Hubbs is my family, like, that's first getting populated from this Appalachian culture. They're just moving west. Like, so if you think of, like, westward expansion in the U.S., like, people didn't really go north or south or in diagonal lines. Like, somebody from New York doesn't end up in New Orleans. They end up in Wisconsin. Same as somebody from Western Virginia ends up in Southern Illinois, Missouri, Northern Arkansas. And so in that part of the country, like, bear hunting has always been a huge thing. Like, for example, even up until like the late 1800s, bear meat was more common than pork. in like markets. Like that was the market hunting days. But like bear hunting is just such a huge part of the culture. So growing up in
it was
that,
really
like,
that popular though, huh?
oh, it's wild.
Yeah, I learned on a previous podcast how popular prairie chicken was, and it was kind of like, wow, it makes sense. I mean, but it's easier to go out and shoot something and bring it back than it is to sit and feed it and take care of it for 9 months.
And it's coming in. Like you look at the early 1700s, we're still populating these 13 original colonies, but there is only so many hogs in the U.S. There's a lot more bears, right? Like, so that was just a thing. That's how guys like Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone kind of made their name on being bear hunters. And the southern Illinois, southern Missouri, like Ozark kind of area, if you go into up until even the 1850s, right before the Civil War, up even the 1870s, like this was the premier bear range. And like this was the far west. Like you have guys coming over from England, from Germany, from Italy, like you would have guys go to the Serengeti now.
Well, yeah, because they went further west, and it was all Indians.
Yeah, and it's so bear hunting has always been a part of I guess like that area's culture, my family's culture. Like it was always a thrill. We haven't had a bear season in Illinois since forever, but it was always a thrill just to have our dogs tree a black bear and just look at it. Just great times. Anytime one would pop up on a game crammer, it's a good time. But so like growing up, like you can go to Arkansas right now, $350 out-of-state license. With that $350 license, you get 5 deer tags, 1 bear tag, and you can kill as many feral hogs as you want. So like there's a ton of opportunities where you can hunt bear every year in the U.S. I love Wisconsin. I love Minnesota, but like there's a ton of ways where you can go bear hunting every year. North Carolina also is an over-the-counter tag. I'm heading out there this fall, but yeah. So this spring I normally go to.
I might have to tag along on one of these hunts just to do a podcast along with some of these guys you were out hunting with, because you're going all over. So we'll have to make sure that we're doing some promoting on social media to kind of stay in tune with some of the things you're doing, because it's exciting, man, to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking.
I'm going on a bunch of bird hunts, but I mean, you're doing that on top of going bear hunting all over, and I mean, you just came back from turkey hunting out in Montana, I think.
Yep, I like. I love this country. It's amazing. I can't pick. Every time I think I have a favorite part of the country pegged, I end up going somewhere else, or I get invited to another part, and I'm like, no, this is my favorite. It's just, I have just as much fun in the mountains of North Carolina as I do in the swamps of Arkansas, as I do in the mountains of Montana. There's so many great places, and I'm one of those people that if I don't have a task, I won't go out there. Like, nothing against hikers or mountain bikers. That's just not for me. Like, if I don't have something that I'm doing, I don't find myself in the mountains as much. But if I have a bear tag, I'll go hike 63 miles. Like I did last year in Montana, looking for a bear. Like, and it's a great time. You can get it over the counter tag and go out there. And one of the other big things is you'll see so many elk, so many mule deer. You'll see moose. You'll see mountain goats. You'll see bighorn sheep. Like, so if you do draw one of those tags, like you'll have spots where you're like, hey, I know they were here in 2021. Like, So, but it's a great time, yeah. So I'm heading out to Thompson Falls, which is about 90 minutes northwest of Missoula. And the reason I'm going there is because I was invited out to write about a turkey hunt they were doing out there for Miriam's with a bunch of veterans. So when I was out there, I saw 5 bears. I saw a bear 5 times maybe, or 5 different bears. I'm not a good enough hunter to be able to distinguish one from another at 1,200 yards. So that's the only reason I picked that area, is because I know I've seen bears there 3 or 4 weeks ago, and willing to bet they're still in the same area. So yeah, it's gonna be a good time camping out of the truck. I may do a couple of pack-ins depending on what I see, where I just throw a few days gear in my bag and walk in 5 or 6 miles.
So when are you leaving?
So let's see, what is today? Today is the 25th. Yeah. I'm leaving on next Tuesday, so a week from today. So I got to run home back to Southern Illinois this weekend, do some stuff, some family stuff, and then Tuesday driving out there. You can sleep in the Cabela parking lot in Rapid City for free. So drive 14 hours, take a few hour nap, and then drive the other 10 hours to Missoula. Start hunting.
You're gonna go through Rapid City, South Dakota. And
Yes, sir.
it's only 10 hours from there?
Yeah, it's really not bad. We used to go 100 miles an hour, and in Montana, there's nothing to hit. So
And it's an over-the-counter tag?
it's an over-the-counter tag. You can buy it every year. So like one of the best things are like if
my wife might not like you after halfway through June.
Yeah, well, there's so much opportunity out there.
You going with anybody else? Or are you just going by yourself?
No. So I've got another backcountry hunters and anglers, like their armed forces meeting is, let's see, that is the 4th and the 5th. So that's next Friday and Saturday. But it's in Missoula, so I was going to have to go up there anyway. So by getting out there Tuesday, I can hunt for 3 days, go to the meeting for 2 days, and then hunt the next 3 days. And bear hunting is also great, especially like mountain bear hunting, because they're so active in the evenings. Like it is truly the lazy man's hunt. You go from turkey hunting, which can be a grind. You're up at 2:30 in the morning or 3, and you're hunting until 8:30 at night because that's when sunset is. Like that can be a grind. Comparatively, spring bear hunting in the mountains, if you don't get up to the top of the mountain until noon, that's fine. Sit there, take a nap, drink some coffee, eat a snack, and the bears are really going to start moving around 3 or 4 p.m. And all they're looking for is food. So you can really target in on these choke cherries, blueberries, blackberries. If you see like a winter kill carcass, like just set up on it. That's going to be huge. All that protein there. But yeah, so it's all right, I don't want to call it a lazy man's hunt. You're still walking a lot. But,
you're still in the mountains. There's nothing lazy about that.
Yeah, if you're talking about you're not into early mornings, especially after turkey hunting for 3 or 4 weeks. Like this is, you're outside, you're in the mountains, looking at some of the most beautiful scenery in the world, and you're out there with a purpose and a rifle in your hand, so it can be a really good time.
Well, when I hit the turkey roost tomorrow morning, and I try to get on a bird, and if I don't get on one right away, and I sit there, and got to wait till, probably 9 or 10 o'clock to get something going, I'm going to be thinking about heading out to Montana.
It's a great time. So I want to say, like, if you throw a turkey tag in with your bear tag, I want to say it's like $400, and then it's whatever you spend to get out there. So probably a couple $100 in gas, maybe MREs or whatever kind of dry food you're going to pack in.
Got all of it already. I mean, I got shit left over from lots of trips. I mean, other than packing a cooler and, so
if you've got all the gear, $400 and whatever it is, an 18-hour drive, you're bear hunting and you throw a shotgun in the truck, you see a turkey, let's put a move on it, because those Merriams, they gobble. I am not an expert on turkey hunting, but in my experience, the Merriams gobble a whole lot more than the Easterns.
That's what I've heard.
Like, they may not come in all the time, but you can locate them pretty well, and you can bushwhack them if need be. Like, you don't need a decoy, you need a reasonable turkey call. How late does the season
go out there?
So the turkey season ends earlier than the bear season. So the turkey season out there is over, but it starts earlier. So
sure,
there's a couple schools of thought on spring bear hunting. Like, first one is I want to be out there the day it opens, which is April 15th. All same for turkeys, because they haven't been hunted before. There's no pressure. The downside of that is they may not be out of their dens yet. You never know. You get up to 7,000-8,000 feet. You're in the snow line. Are these bears in the dens? Are they not? Are they coming out? Who knows? So that's why I kind of tend to go. Normally I go in the middle of the season, but I had that riding trip that I had to work, more or less, if you want to call it work. So this time I'm going to the end of the season because it goes until June 15th. Turkey season ends on June 1st, but bear season goes till June 15th.
Got 5 days.
So then you're good.
Well, I could maybe swing it, bang a turkey on Wednesday and be in Missoula by Thursday evening.
Yeah, it's a blast.
I don't know if my wife's gonna like you too much, but I'm just messing with you.
But then I'm pretty fortunate. I'll throw a plug in here for my wife, Vicky Hubbs. She's probably the best wife I could have married. She's a bigger fisherman than I am. She loves quail hunting behind the dogs. She is like, if she's not upset that I'm going, she's upset that she's not coming, because she's what are we at? 7 months pregnant now, so she's not in a traveling mood.
No, and I don't mean to talk ill about my wife. Iris is the most lovely woman and in the world. I couldn't imagine my life without her. She definitely did not grow up doing the things that I love to do, but she has caught more big walleyes than I've ever caught in my life. And she actually just reminded me this morning. I got a picture from her. She goes, "This was 8 years ago this week," and I think I posted it up on Instagram. She got this nice 29-inch walleye up in
Nice.
up in kind of close to the boundary waters. We were actually in an inland lake in Voyageurs National Park. It really cool. I kept catching lake trout, and she just kept pulling walleyes and stuff out. I'm like, we're fishing with the same stuff. But yeah, no, she's really allowed me to chase this dream, and she's busting her hump, and that's why she gets upset, because she wants to be along with me, and unfortunately her work requires her to commit to a location and not be able to have nearly the kind of freedom that I have. So it's a delicate balance. I have to save some brownie points and make sure that I'm giving her enough attention, because sometimes running around during hunting season, she definitely feels like she's single.
Oh yeah, I could definitely understand where you're coming from there. That's
yeah, and God bless our wives for that. That let us sick individuals do what we do.
It's got to be a tough job being married to guys like us. I don't envy them.
I don't either. I just thankful that I have one, and she sticks by me, and she tells me to chase my dream, and she still loves me at night when I come home for the most part, unless I spouted my mouth off.
Yes, sir. But,
well, it's really exciting. I mean, you got my. I didn't think. I thought you had to draw that spring tag out in Montana. I guess I've never really looked at spring bear hunting, like I said. So now you got my.
No, I knew stuff like.
I know about 8:00 tomorrow morning, I'm going to see a black bear.
Oh man, the bears out there are not as mountain bears are like not as big as bears you're going to see in Wisconsin and Minnesota. They're just not. They're walking a lot more. There's not the agriculture that they can feed on. So like I am happy with a 300-pound bear, not field dressed. Like that would be not. I mean, that's not a trophy, but that would be that's a shooter bear to me. Like that's a 250 and up. That's a good bear for me. Whereas in Wisconsin, guys will pass on bears like that because they know there's the 400, the 500 pounders out there.
Yeah, I made the mistake of sharing the trail camera pictures. I had two guys bear hunting last year on the property. Just kind of, we've had a lot of. It's an area that doesn't get a lot of pressure, and especially from bear hunters. And we've got a lot of space for them, and a lot of very large tracts of land around that just don't get pressure. And we've had an explosion of black bears over the last. I've been leasing this land for almost 10 years now, and it's I carry a 44 mag all of early bow season if I'm out there, and in the springtime if I'm calling for somebody. I think people on Instagram could easily understand this. I was within 12 yards of three 2-year-old bears, and their sow mom. And I was with my uncle. He's deaf as a doornail, and I think he had his hearing aids all the way up. And there was a deadfall in between where the bears were and where he was, and I could see it clear as day. And that where I first heard the noise come from was like 7 yards from him. So I think they tried to come out to the field edge, and they smelled him. He's a stinky old man, and they ended up going up north, heading north instead of west. But I mean, it's one of those things where there's just a ridiculous amount of bears up by us. So I carry a lot of protection, even if I'm within shouting distance of a guy with a shotgun. So I don't know. I've bear hunting has become more of a like a duty for me, at least up here in Wisconsin, than it is in an enjoyment. And I've seen bears out west while I've been out in Colorado elk hunting, and my brother and I he had a bear tag 2 years ago. Well, last year too, we didn't see any, but 2 years ago we saw quite a few, and we tried to put a stalk on this bear, and even out in the mountains, like it was I don't know, we were at like 8,900 feet, and it kind of over this rolling hill that had aspens down about, I don't know, maybe 400 feet. It was just an open area. I don't know if it had been logged off or what, but he came cruising up over the crest of the hill or the mountain and was kind of trying to get down into that aspen. And there was a drainage in between us, so we skipped down one and hopped over the next. And I mean, he never left the open field, and he just disappeared. It was just, I mean, this big, gigantic black spot in this dead, frosted over, basically looked like a grass field, and just gray and browns and very little green left. It's, I mean, just total opposite color of what he is, and he just disappeared. So
it's amazing how much those big bears can just slip away. I had one last year in Idaho at 60 yards. I was out there on a rifle season elk hunt, but I had a bear tag with me. Had a great cinnamon colored. I thought it was a small bear at the time because I thought the grass he was in was like knee high. And later in the week, I was down there at the same time. I'm like, wow, this is shoulder high grass. This was a big bear. Like, yeah, it's 60 yards. I wanted to wait a few more minutes and see if he would pop out. And I slipped into a crevice somewhere and disappeared. It's amazing. One, how quiet these bears can be. And two, just how these giant animals can just slip away from you. It's wild.
Yeah, and they're really hard to judge, in size. I always, even a 2, 3-year-old, 5-year-old bear that's 200 pounds, that the difference in being able to judge them, it's one thing to look at them on a trail camera picture where you get a beautiful side profile of the bear.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still hard. And then you compound that at, hey, you got a 500-yard distance in between you and the bear, and you're using maybe a 50x set of binoculars, and you got to make a decision pretty quickly if you're gonna make a move on this bear, because they don't stay in the same spot forever. I imagine they don't leave too far from food, but that doesn't mean he lands somewhere where that you're not going to be able to see him. And so you want to get them while they're out moving around, where they're out in clearer areas, because they could be anywhere around that patch of berries in the springtime, laying in the cedars, and you never see them.
Yeah, once they get into that timber, it's they're gone. Like, you may stumble upon them. I've heard of guys doing that, and I've never been fortunate enough to just walk up on a bear at 100 yards in the thick timber out west. But I mean, you hear about guys doing it, but yeah, if they're not, if they're in the open, I'm making a move on them as soon as I see them. Like, let's get to a shooting knob pretty quick here.
It's crazy, man. And you said you did 60 miles last year?
Yeah, last year I was. I don't recommend that people do that.
I did 45 elk hunting, and I took one day off, and I was out there for 7 of the 9-day season. So I hunted 6 days. I did 45 miles, and I thought I was dead.
We were out there, me and my buddy of mine from the 82nd Airborne. We were out there for 7 days, and it was my fault. I misjudged the distance on the map, where I thought we were walking in 4 miles to do a little spike camp, and it turned out we were walking in 8 miles, and kind of went downhill from there. We were just all over this drainage every single day, and we saw a ton of animals, tons of mountain goats, tons of moose, saw everything but elk, and it's still a great trip. Like, that's the other thing. Like, when you don't fill your tag out west, especially coming from back east or Wisconsin or Arkansas, Illinois, wherever, like, it doesn't feel like you wasted your time. You just you keep looking at your pictures in your phone. You're just
gonna say, you still got the pictures of the scenery, man, and it just blows you away every time.
Absolutely.
And the memories, man. I mean, again, and that's why I love taking people out, and it's why when you were like, oh, let's go trout fishing, and I'm like, well, we're not in the best trout area. If you don't mind, let's drive. Let's get to a better area.
Absolutely.
And we only had at that one time, we only had, an hour and a half at best, but it was worth instead of dicking around at somewhere where, maybe we'd see one or two trout. I wanted to get somewhere where you were, still new to the fly fishing aspect of it. And it was like, it's important to have you have a good experience. And I'm like, well, you're just going to have a much better experience if we drive a little bit. And yeah, it was great. And,
having whatever it was, 15 to 20 trout rising 10 yards away from me was amazing. That was crazy. We're in a foot of water. Like, that just blew my mind on what, and I've gone on to catch several trout like by myself.
Yeah, I've seen that. You've been sending me some few pictures. I've been really happy about it.
Well, it's water that I've walked past, just like, oh, there's not going to be trout there. And then, seeing where all those trout were rising and what you were telling me, it's like, okay, well, I have been walking past areas that are definitely holding trout. And I was really proud of myself the other day. I caught a little 9-inch brown trout, but I was like, man, I bet there's a trout sitting right there. I'm going to throw something at it. And the first cast, nailed it. And it was just like, look at that, coming together. Now, it's probably luck, but don't tell me because I'm self-conscious. It was not luck. It's because I'm an amazing player now.
It's about reading the river. I mean, the fish sit in seams. They're gonna, you have to. It's a complex issue, but I kind of walked you through kind of the basics of it, and once you kind of get able to read the stream and visualize in your mind where fish could be, I think it's easier than lake fishing. Put me on a chart plotter, and it's like, I mean, there could be fish here, and but I don't know. I'm so visual. I want to trust what I see, and when you got hooks on a graph, like they could be walleye, they could be crappie, and it looks like they could be, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where I've always felt more comfortable in the stream, and I'm glad to be able to pass a little knowledge down and see and hear some success out of it too.
Oh yeah, and it's not again, not taking anything away from you, but it almost made me feel like why didn't I figure this out? Because you weren't telling me anything mind blowing. Once you said it, though, it's like, wow, this makes a ton of sense. I'm almost embarrassed. Why didn't I think of this?
It's just a confidence level, man. Bit. You're trying something new. I work on my own trucks, but there's something new that I do, or I call somebody. It's an assurance level that you get, and then it's like you trudge forward and you try it, and it's like, holy cow, there's success here, and it's not that hard. Been there many times, but it's that. But you can't get that by going out on the stream by yourself. And I talked to somebody from Trout Unlimited last week, and I said, I want to mentor, if I can. It's about that connection and making that, I don't know, 20 minutes out of a 1 day experience click for somebody so they can take that and apply it to their own setting and drive success, because it keeps. For retention and getting new people outdoors and trying new things, that's the kind of success you have to have in order to retain them.
Oh, absolutely. That's so bringing I don't want to bring it back to the BHA Armed Forces Initiative. Bringing my buddy from Fort Bragg last year.
It's time for plugs in the wrap up, man. So plug away and bring her full circle if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, no. So he'd hunted in high school, and then he joined the military just like I did. We end up being roommates for a while in the barracks, and then we were just together for our whole military career. But he got out, and he got a job in California, and he didn't know anybody out there, didn't know how to really go about hunting. So this is his first hunting trip in 8 years that he'd been on, and now I get a text almost every week from, hey, I applied for points here. This is what he's hooked, and we didn't even see an elk. We were just out there, but being that close to the wildlife, he loves it. And I can tell, he's a happier person. So last thing I'm going to plug here, the Accelerating Veterans Recovery Outdoors Act was passed last November. So basically what that is there's enough scientific evidence that being outside, whether you're mountain biking, hiking, canoeing, hunting, fishing, whatever, has some sort of therapeutic value to everybody, but especially to veterans. 22 veterans commit suicide every single day, and that's something that we got to figure out how to stop. So the Accelerating Veterans Recovery Outdoors Act is intended to utilize public lands and waters throughout the United States for these veteran therapeutic adventures, for lack of a better term. So since November, I know that was November of 19. So since November of 2019, it was passed. It had 136 co-sponsors, so it's bipartisan. Everybody loves this, but we haven't had any movement on it. And I get COVID happened. There's maybe more pressing matters, but if you're going to take one thing away, write your congressman, write your senator, and ask them why we're not doing anything with this Accelerating Veterans Recovery Outdoors Act, and see if they give you an answer. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. But that would be, if you're going to only take one thing away, take that away from my interview today.
Well, you will have to please send me some information on that, because it sounds like there'd be some great opportunities. I've done in the past, I've volunteered with Project Healing Waters Fly Fishing, where we I didn't really do much of the tying aspect, but we did a couple outings where I've taken vets on the river, donate my own time to it. I hate to kind of boast my own bag, but I've been responsible for getting a Vietnam vet his first ever muskie, and it was so cool. God gifted me with seeing what I believe is the next world record muskie that day. So it was so fulfilling for me. Not only did it, I accomplished this guy's goal and made him super happy, and the selfishness side of me got fulfilled as well, because I at least saw something to honestly keep me going back to that particular spot for probably the rest of my life now.
Yeah.
But
that's all.
You got to send me some information, just personal level, but also I want to include that information in the show notes. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity. I had not heard anything about that either. So I really appreciate you shining some major light on at least some legislative stuff in the outdoor industry right now. Yeah,
and I don't want to appear like it's boring, or hopefully we didn't lose some listeners because of this. But it's a non-biased, nonpartisan thing. Democrats love it, Republicans love it, Independents love it. Like, it's truly a no-brainer. And I think the more of these kind of no-brainer bills we see, they're always about the outdoors. Like, everybody loves it out there. So let's kind of utilize everybody agreeing for the first time in 8 years and do something with it.
Yeah, and regardless of who's in the White House, I don't really try to go political very often, and I hope I don't lose any listeners about that, because at the end of the day, government works through two sides not agreeing, coming to a compromise and agreeing. And I think even if you go back further than the last 8 years, over the last really like 2 decades of politics in this country, it's been nothing but just browbeating each other's sides. And it just really needs to stop in order for us, I think, as a society to move forward, because we've put ourselves into two corners, and I think the majority of the people are in the middle, and the extremes kind of right now are the ones who are in power moving things around, and it just doesn't make sense to a lot of common folks. And I think we just need a little more common sense. And I'm a personal huge believer of giving back to the boys that have put their life on the line for this country. And if that can align with my love for getting outdoors, I can't urge the listeners enough to support some kind of action on this legislation. I mean, it sounds like it's passed. It's just something needs to be done with it.
It's just sitting there. So what it's supposed to do is it has a list in it. I'm going to send you the link to it on the Congress.gov page. But essentially, it has people from the Veteran Affairs Committee. It's got designated people from the Department of Interior, all these people that are relevant in the outdoor space, in the government. Like, it just put them all on a team. It's like, hey, you have 6 months to come up with a plan once this is passed. Then they extended it because of COVID, and there's other things everybody's doing, which is fine. But vaccines are out there. Places are opening back up. Let's just make sure that we don't forget about this.
Well,
that would be my.
And there's science behind the damage that was done through all the lockdowns. And if veterans are committing suicide at that current rate, I can't imagine what the numbers are going to look like in a couple of years once you actually play in the last few months or year with lockdowns. So it's paramount timing now that we get ahead of this curve because we've already lost time on this.
Absolutely. Goodness,
and we're facing, even more mental health issues that have been impacted by current scenario. I mean, just the craziness of all the COVID stuff alone, then compounded with being, constricted on what you feel like you could do in a country that you fought for freedoms. I mean, it one thing for a common man that, it's never really, took an oath and been in combat or anything like that. It's something way bigger for somebody who's fought for this country. And I think the separation and understanding for the love of country is quite a bit different than somebody who is a veteran to this country. So it needs to be. I'm glad we got to talk about it. That's all. I'm really glad because I didn't know anything about it, and it needs to move forward if there's an opportunity there to help. Because getting outside is super healthy from physical aspect, but I know how much mental health I derive back when I get outdoors after having it sucked away from me through work and other things in life. So I can only imagine how much it helps veterans. So, listeners, please absolutely try to get out and contact your local congressperson to move some and get some action on this.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do the research to figure out who your congressperson or your senator is, one of the great things that BackCountry Hunters and Anglers does is you sign up on their website. You don't even have to become a member, but you really should. But if you don't want to become a member, they have just these canned letters that say, hey, I really want you to look into the Accelerating Better Outdoors Act. And you type in your zip code, it tells you who your congressman is, it tells you who your senators are, and it types the email. All you have to do is type in your name at the bottom and hit send, and you'll send it to 6 different representatives. Take you 5 minutes.
Please send me that link. I'll make sure to include that in the show notes so people can sign up, maybe choose to donate and become a member. But if not, at least get in touch with their congresspeople pretty easily.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Well, kick ass, man. It's been really fun chatting with you. I really would hope you'd love to come back and enlighten us on how your spring bear hunt went and hopefully successful spring bear hunt went.
Yeah, I would. I'd love to come back. It's a great time. I always like hanging out with you. If I know you're out here for promoting yourself on every podcast, so I don't want to kind of put another.
I've tried to back off a little bit of that, because the podcast in itself has kind of become a lot more than I thought it would be, and I'm really thankful and humbled by it. So I don't really want to, I do enough of that out on Instagram and Facebook. So, but. No, I don't mean this as a taking away from what your comment is, but Saturday Muskie opens up here and the drift boat's getting rolled out. So
I'm sure it's a fantastic time. Like if you're new to the outdoors, if you've been in the outdoors forever and you just want to learn something new from a guy who just knows it. Brian's probably the best guide I've ever had. I'm not taking away from any other guides. Like a lot of them have been good, but the guy just gets it. Brian's out there. He knows it. He's willing to share information with you. Like I've had some fly fishing guides. They're just like, hey, so you can't tell anyone where we went today and you can't come back here without me, which is fine. Totally get you protecting your business. But if you want to learn how to fly fish or how to hunt turkeys or how to hunt bears, whatever, like Brian's got the information. Just give him a shout, get on his calendar because he's going to fill up fast.
Yeah. And even if, you're not in the market to, hire a guide, but if you have some questions, feel free to reach out. I find that the biggest success, and I think some of the biggest detriment to some of guides, some, professionals in the industry is they're just not that personable. I've been out on a lot of fishing charters down south with some really, really salty guys. And, we even catch a lot of great fish, but, the experience in itself is only ever remembered between the people that hired the charter. Oh yeah, we remember that old salty captain. He was just like the rest of them. I don't know. I've just taken it as a personal responsibility to try to befriend people and be real. And I don't know, if you treat people with that kind of respect, it comes back to you tenfold. And I think that's more important over than it helps, again, create that experience, and if you have a bad experience with the person you're with, how can you expect to have a good experience to try to, promote the industry you're in? So I take that to heart big time.
Yeah. So you're doing a great job, Ryan.
I appreciate it, man.
And that's good about you.
I really appreciate the plug at the end here. Well, let's plug Red Dog Media. I mean, where can people reach out to you personally if they want you to, or maybe a listener has a story that is they want to run by you?
Yeah, the easiest way is Red Dog Outdoor Media on Instagram. Look me up. I got a picture of one of my setters in the duck boat.
Do you mind if I include that in the show notes too? Yeah,
you can include that. And then, you can look at reddogoutdoors.blogspot.com. So it's honestly, it's just a hunting blog, hunting, fishing, trapping, publish stories from all over. I would say right now I've got, I think the last time I checked, it was a 27% pickup rate. So it's published on the blog. I send it out to a lot of different magazines where I think it would fit really well. And sometimes they get picked up, sometimes they don't. It depends on what that magazine's looking for, a lot more than it depends on your talent as a writer, because I'm not a great writer, but you time it right and you get in the right issue and people pick it up. So yeah, reach out to me, send me if you're working on any projects, you got a short story that needs told, let me know. I'll help you put it in a place where others can view it.
Right on, man. Yeah, I got a couple things I want to run by you, but we just haven't had time. Every time we get chatting, it time rolls by and both of us have to run. So
yes, sir.
Well, anyways, I'm gonna again, anything wrapped up in closing that you want to say? Otherwise, I think we can kind of roll out here if you want.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I hope I didn't miss anything. If I did, hopefully somebody calls me on it. But yeah, I think we're good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, you're so welcome. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you shining light on some of these issues because I didn't know about them personally, and I'm sure the listeners would find at least some interest in it. So greatly appreciated.
Yeah, no problem, sir.
Well, you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll catch up here soon. Good luck bear hunting, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Amaazen Outdoors podcast. Trevor had a lot of really great things to say today. I really urge you to reach out to your congressman and find out more information about this Veterans Outdoors Act. God bless America. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening.